Varys had every reason to turn on Daenerys years before he actually did. He'd seen her temper. He'd seen what she was capable of when someone crossed her. He'd spent decades reading rulers, weighing threats, calculating exactly when loyalty stopped being safe. And he waited anyway, right up until the moment it cost him his life. That's not a mistake. That's the whole story. If you're new here, this is Mereth Tales. We go beyond what happened and into why it happened. Subscribe and hit the bell, because Varys' death is one of the most misunderstood moments in the entire show, and by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why he waited as long as he did. Let's start with who Varys actually is, underneath the riddles and the whispered secrets. Varys doesn't serve kings. He's told us that directly, more than once, in more than one season. He serves the realm. Whatever that means to him in any given moment, it's never really about personal loyalty to whoever happens to be sitting the throne. It's about outcome. About which ruler, on balance, leaves fewer people starving, fewer cities burned, fewer children orphaned by wars that didn't need to happen. That's the lens you have to view every single one of his decisions through. Not friendship, not fear. Calculation, in service of a goal most people in Westeros have stopped believing is even possible. So when Daenerys arrives with dragons, and an army, and a genuine desire to break the wheel that's been crushing common people for centuries, Varys does something he rarely does with anyone. He commits. Not blindly. Varys never does anything blindly. But he watches her free slaves across 3 cities. He watches her build something resembling actual governance in Meereen, however messy and imperfect. He watches her make promises about the people who have no power, and then watches her actually try to keep them, even when keeping them is hard. For a man who has served the worst rulers in Westeros' recent memory, mad kings, weak kings, cruel kings, Daenerys looks, for a long time, like the exception he's been waiting his entire life to find. So why does that change? Here's the part most retellings skip past too quickly. It doesn't change all at once. It erodes. The same way trust always erodes when you're paying close enough attention. And the story gives you every single data point, if you know where to look. The first crack is Astapor. Freed, then burning, then a hard lesson in how liberation without infrastructure creates chaos as easily as it creates justice. The second crack is Meereen. Months of insurgency, assassination, failed harvests. Daenerys ruling through force, because force is the only tool that's ever fully worked for her. Neither of these breaks Varys' faith completely. Building something new is hard. He understands that better than almost anyone in Westeros. What he's actually watching for isn't perfection, it's pattern. And the pattern he's watching for is simple. When Daenerys faces resistance, does she adapt, or does she reach for fire? For most of the story, the answer is complicated enough that Varys can keep believing in her. She listens to counsel. She takes advice, even when it frustrates her. She executes people who genuinely betray her, which is more mercy than most rulers in Westeros ever show. But watch what happens as her losses accumulate. Missandei, executed in chains in front of her. Rhaegal, shot out of the sky before the war for Westeros even properly begins. Her fleet, burned before it reaches shore. Jorah, dead defending her on a battlefield she barely survives herself. Here's the question Varys is actually asking, quietly, the entire time this is happening. Not, is Daenerys angry? Anyone would be angry. The question is whether grief and rage are starting to replace judgment. Whether the woman who once listened to counsel is starting to trust only the voice in her own head, telling her that everyone who opposes her deserves what's coming. And Varys watches her ask a question that chills him more than anything else in the entire war. She asks whether the people of King's Landing, ordinary people with no power and no army, deserve the same fate as the soldiers actively fighting against her. That's the moment. Not a single dramatic betrayal. A conversation where Daenerys tests, out loud, whether cruelty toward the innocent is something she's willing to consider. Varys has heard that question before, in different words, from different rulers, across an entire career of watching power corrode good intentions into justifications for violence. He knows exactly what that question means. So why does he wait even after hearing it? Why not act immediately, the moment the warning signs are unmistakable? Because Varys, for all his cynicism, still isn't certain. And a man who's spent his entire life playing every side of every conflict understands something most people in this story never learn. Certainty is expensive. Acting too early on a suspicion that turns out to be wrong doesn't just fail. It confirms every paranoid instinct in the person you were trying to stop, and hands them a reason to become exactly what you feared. So Varys does what Varys always does. He gathers more information. He reaches out to Jon Snow, testing whether there's a better option waiting in reserve, someone with the bloodline and the temperament to replace Daenerys if it truly comes to that. He's not betraying her yet. He's building a contingency, the same way he's built contingencies for every ruler he's ever served. That contingency is also his fatal mistake. Because Daenerys, already primed by grief and loss and isolation, is no longer the version of herself who tolerates being tested. She finds out. And the same instinct Varys spent years watching for in her, the reach for fire over adaptation, finally, unmistakably, turns on him. She has him executed, not as a criminal facing trial, as dragonfire, delivered personally, by the queen he spent years quietly believing could actually be different. Here's what makes this genuinely tragic rather than simply strategic. Varys wasn't wrong to wait as long as he did. Betraying a ruler prematurely, based on suspicion rather than certainty, is exactly the kind of mistake that gets you executed for treason against someone who might have actually deserved your loyalty. He was playing the odds the only way a man in his position reasonably could. He just happened to be playing them against someone whose descent was accelerating faster than his caution could keep pace with. That's the real tragedy hiding inside his death. Varys spent his entire life mastering patience, information, and careful timing, because in the world of Westeros, those tools had always been enough to keep him one step ahead of catastrophe. They weren't enough this time. Not because he miscalculated who Daenerys was. Because he miscalculated how fast grief could turn someone who'd spent years trying to be good into someone who no longer had the patience to be tested. Varys didn't betray Daenerys too late because he was foolish. He betrayed her exactly when the evidence finally became undeniable. It's just that by the time evidence becomes undeniable, in a story like this one, it's usually already too late to survive acting on it. If this changed how you see Varys' death, subscribe now, because we're not done with the people who saw the end coming before anyone else did.